I know on Saturday you said that Curtis's injury looked like something that it would take time, for him to recover from. But do you have any updates? Has he been around the team at all or anything like that?
Yeah, he's around, and we'll see how it all plays out. Tomorrow we'll have the ability to talk a little bit more thoroughly on where he's at.
Mhm. So, I think in hindsight, the way that this season has gone with the two quarterback situation is sort of like a positive, if you would, at this moment, just because Armani is more prepared. Comparing to past years, how prepared would you say Armani is versus the average backup quarterback?
Well, he's not been in our system uh, as long as most quarterbacks that have been second or third team quarterbacks in our system. But in saying that, he's a very bright guy. He's picked up things very quickly. Um, Very competitive guy. The players really care for him, surround him. I think you could see after his long touchdown run on the option play how excited his teammates were for him. So a lot of pluses for Amani. So we expect him to step in, and if need be as a starter or coming in off the bench to play great football. It's at a point in time where those flashes are now starting to show some consistency, and which is good. We haven't had a chance to develop his passing game as much as we would like. And when I say that, I mean throws that are happening in ball games. He hasn't gotten a lot of those, but he's gotten a ton of them in practice, and very good thrower. And so we think that all can be displayed when it comes time for him to be in the ball game again.
You mentioned he, obviously hasn't had that much time in the system. How has he been, grasping the concepts and the systems? Like, have you seen improvement in that department from him?
Yeah, he's done really a great job of it. And it's never simple to play the quarterback position with almost any team. Obviously, there's some complexity that goes into developing a complete passing game, a complete running game. If you're using audibles and checks, those all enter into the pitcher, making sure he has a good grasp of terminology of what we're calling coverages and how those all work with the plays that we run. And so he's come a long ways in a very very short period of time. So really really pleased with that aspect of his game.
Big matchup this week, and obviously, last season Jared Patterson was more of Buffalo's sort of the second guy, really. Only had 13 carries, 52 yards. What have you noticed from Buffalo? How are they using him differently than they'd used against you guys last year? And what about that scheme is making them so successful?
Well, I think they uh, used him quite extensively last year. He may have been banged up and going into our game a little bit, which limited maybe some of his carries. They also had some really top of the line receivers, so they were distributing the ball a little bit more than what they seem to be doing right now, and so that has certainly added to his carries. And the they're not overly complicated with what they're doing with him in the running game, but what the things that they're doing, they do really really well. Outside zone stretch, whatever you want to call it, is something that they run very very well. And he's that type of runner where he can see holes, cut back, get a great. He's got great vision, and sees things coming from all different angles and is able to react to them. And then he's got a real legitimate burst. So he's deserving of all the allocations he's getting.
You know, Buffalo's basically sort of rolled through all their competition so far, but Kent State played them really tough in the first half. what did you see Kent State do that sort of, had some success against Buffalo?
Well, Kent State has a very experienced quarterback, and so obviously that experience came in handy, and the throwing game came in very handy. So they kept them pretty honest with the ability to perform at a pretty high level in both those areas because of the talent that Kent State has. In the end, Buffalo did a good job of containing that and getting it done. But you look at Kent State; they're a very explosive football team from the offensive end of it, and so it was a great job all the way around by Buffalo. You don't win that game and separate yourself by that kind of margin without having some special things happen for you, and they have those kind of guys that can make those special things happen.
You've had roster limitations all season, but as you saw, you got some of those guys back, and they've been back in a big way. Kai had a good game. Alvin Floyd with the interception. Yeah, Eli's having a breakout year. Does it sort of give you comfort knowing that your defense could be potentially at full strength for its biggest test of the season?
Yeah. Well, we're really not going to be at full strength, but we're closer to being at full strength than we have been. You're right in saying that, and so that's always encouraging. That gives us not only a few starters coming back, but that also gives us some depth, which you usually need on the defensive end of it. And our guys have really risen to the occasion. If you on the defensive side of it, if you look at it and what they got accomplished these last two games, I think has been somewhat special because of all the adjustments that they had to make in order to make it work because of limitations to our roster going into those games. And so, we didn't really fully recover from the Miami situation but we recovered enough that we were able to play the games. Guys are still trickling back. And so, that's promising, and that's certainly what you're after. And so we feel a little more comfortable about having a few more guys on the field that we've missed.
A lot of guys broke out on Saturday, but somebody who sort of flew under the radar a little bit was Tristan VanDenberg. He made all the kicks that he needed to make. He had a really good game. Over that 18-day break, how did you see him sort of, get that confidence back? And how good was it to see him, go out there and perform on Saturday?
Yeah, it was great to see him bounce back. And you saw signs of it during the time between this last ball game and the previous one to where you felt comfortable. And I think he felt much more comfortable with his rhythm on his kicking. We shortened his stride a little bit. He's such a long-legged, long-limbed guy that he was separating himself from the ball quite a bit, and that's just that much more distance to have to do everything perfectly. So we shortened those steps off a little bit, and he seems to get in a better rhythm, and he stated that he feels more comfortable with that. So I think that's helped, and just game experience. The game experience helps. It's not always going to be perfect when it comes to a kicker, and so all the experience you get, some good, some bad, kind of makes you into the kicker that you are. And I like the progress that he's made since our last ball game.
Mm-hmm. Your team hasn't had to travel since week one. How, especially with all the COVID guidelines and everything like that, what kind of stress did that put on the Central Michigan trip, and how nice has it been, having these last few games at home?
Yeah, that was an extended, really long trip, and I thought our guys handled it well, and no excuses in terms of the length of the trip and how that all works on a road game where you're on a bus for a little over 7 hours, and then coming back following the game, and you get in at, I don't know what it was, we got in 5 or 6 or 7 in the morning, and then they've got school, then they've got, it's just it's just a tough routine, and our guys have handled it real well. Much easier to play at home, obviously, than travel that kind of distance. That's right on the edge of flying. In normal times, we would have maybe had one flight this year, and that would have been it, and would have made things certainly easier. But that's the way it goes. Everybody in the MAC is doing the same thing. They're traveling whatever distance they need to travel to make it work. They're on buses, and for some guys that's not bad traveling. They're able to sleep the majority of the time. So depends upon the individual, I guess.
Does your team need any more bulletin board material? I mean, I know they're already revved up to play just because everything surrounding this season, but do you feel like seeing Jared Patterson break FBS records lights a fire under your defense this week?
No, they set out to play great football every week, and you can't just try to piece together a driving force to play better football. There's a lot of things that go into playing great football, and you better get all those bases covered. Now, obviously, it is a challenge to them, and our guys have always accepted challenge as well. So there's a little bit of that goes into it. You don't play a great running back, a great quarterback, a great receiver without there being a challenge there for the guys that are playing on the other side of the ball. But there's a lot of other things that go into winning football games, and I think our guys are able to piece together the whole package.
Where have you seen the most growth from your team this season, Coach?
Well, I think special teams has been really steady and really good. I think we're special at special teams in most categories, and we're getting better in the others. And I think our defense has really improved quite extensively. Some of that has been because of a few guys getting back, but it also has been they've had to make adjustments and make good adjustments because of guys missing. And our staff has done that. Our players have adapted to that and played very, very well. So, that's really a pat on the back to those guys. And then offensively, I think we started to show really what we can be all about as an offensive football team in terms of putting points on the board. I don't, we had some explosiveness in runs. Didn't have what you would call explosiveness in the passing game, but we didn't throw much, and so that that certainly limits some of that explosiveness if you don't put the ball in the air some. But it's what it is. I think our guys have adjusted to what we're doing, and they're coming a long way. So I like the progress of both offense and defense and special teams. We need to just have it be consistent and improve in just an area or two.
Coach, it kind of seemed last Saturday the pieces started falling into place. The offense blew BG out of the water. The defense really improved. The special teams really showed that they had improved over the 18 days since Akron. And you could kind of lead that saying the canceling Miami game kind of helped into stepping back and seeing what needed to be worked on and kind of improving that for the BG game. So my question is, what goes into having an 18-day period to prepare for BG compared to having the 6 days to prepare for Buffalo, who is one of the top teams in the MAC, compared to the 18 days for BG, who's a struggling team in the MAC right now?
Some of it's just the amount of time that the players are driven with hard practices on the football field. I mean, you can't have that whole time be taken up when you're missing a game. That whole time taken up by hard hardcore driven football practices. You know, you've got to be able to have lighter practices at times, breaks at times. Those all got to be timed out well. It also gives you a chance maybe to get a few guys that are injured healed up a little bit, the ones that, you know, don't have serious injuries. And so, you know, there's a lot of that goes into play. You know, you got to make sure you focus all your time on the upcoming game. But in saying that, when you have an extended period of time, that you can get an early start on your next opponent, whoever that is. But you know, you don't want to find yourself working your coaches to death and working your players to death during that period, and have them just breathing heavy when it comes time for the kickoff game. You know, you got to be smart about your preparation.
Is there like a certain ratio for like the hard practices to like the more lighter practices? Is it like having 3 hardcore practices to every 2, or how does that work?
We take it day by day, and the reason for that is you're just not sure of guys coming back, and you know, sometimes you'll have more scout team guys to where you'll be able to get a good look from your scout team guys, and so you want to get a lot of teamwork in. You know, maybe you're a football team that needs drill work to get better at tackling or blocking and those kind of things. So we try to have a fairly good mixture of the drill work to make sure that our guys don't lose the edge on the critical things in football, blocking and tackling. But you know, you still got to function as a team in all those units. So you still get your amount of teamwork that is needed. And when it comes to when to take days off and how to make that work, you know, you try to plan ahead a little bit so that, you know, guys know what they're doing on weekends and how that's all going to come into play. But you don't want to get too far down the road, because things change pretty quickly in this game, you know, and you get out there and your team looks tired. It doesn't make sense to go with a 3-day hard and 2-day off or easy, you know. I mean, you just adjust it day by day. We get our strength coach involved in it, Dak Notestein, and in making those kind of decisions. We also get John Bowman and Ryan Bone, who are with our department downstairs in terms of the medical aspect of the game, and when we get together, we all come up with how we want to practice during an extended period of time off.
Coach Demontre Tuggle was named to the Paul Horning Award honor roll, and then Julian Ross was named MAC East Special Teams Player of the Week. How special is it to kind of have these guys named to these awards and getting all these accolades week in and week out so far?
Demontre is a legitimate running back. You're going to see 2 of the better running backs around on the field come Saturday, and that's pretty special. You don't see that all the time in the MAC, but those guys can play anywhere, and so that, you know, that is to us very, very special. And the other part of the question was what?
No, I was just saying, how special is it to kind of have players on your team? I think every game so far they've picked up MAC East honors.
Oh yeah, Julian and the special teams player of the game, a great honor. I think it showed Julian's speed, showed his talents on those kick returns, and we'd like to get more snaps. We'd like to get Julian some more reps to show what he can do as a running back, because it's been difficult with him in terms of his injuries and how he's been banged up at times to have him healed and get a lot of reps and ready to go without other guys all of a sudden squeezing ahead of him because of being on the field, you know. So he's been such a great leader and has accepted all of it so well. We want to try to let him show what he can get done on the offensive side of it also.
Coach, we've seen a bunch of guys wearing the turnover belt recently, but one guy who hasn't really had a chance yet is Justin Burchette. But in a way, that's also a good thing, because, you know, he hasn't been on a highlight reel of anybody else. He's been somewhat of a stalwart at corner. How have you, noticed his progression this season, and how nice is it to have a corner that, even though he's not getting the big plays, he's not giving up the big plays as well?
Well, when you get a guy that's really good at the corner spot, you're not necessarily going to get the interceptions, because a couple things. One, sometimes they don't throw to that guy a lot if you got a great corner on him. And the other thing is, you're not playing center field where you can see a ball thrown and break on the ball. You're having to play a man most of the time until that ball gets there, and then you got to try to bat the ball or play defense then. And so that's a lot different ball game than playing a safety and roaming in deep middle or having a half of the field and seeing the quarterback release the ball and knowing where he's looking and getting a jump on it. And you don't get any of that at the corner spot. So those guys generally don't get the receptions interceptions that safeties do. But if you got a really good one, and he's covering his guy out there, the ball's not going to be thrown there all that much either, and which means that he's not going to have a lot of opportunities to get the ball when it is in the air. So a corner's got one of those jobs where he's got to play great football and not worry about interceptions, but worry about making sure you got your guy covered and you're able to go up, battle for those 50-50 balls, and if nothing else, get them knocked down rather than letting a great receiver make catches. And Justin's done a great job of that.
Looking back at film, who are some of the guys that you've noticed that, even though they're not getting, the accolades or the attention, that you noticed like, wow, they do their job all the time?
Well, there's a ton of guys that don't get the headlines on our team, and that's just like every other team. Jeremiah Burton rose to where he was a special player for us this season. Really had great development. Isaiah Cox, his ability as a great receiver is showing. We haven't been able to get the ball to him much, but it's really showing that he's a special receiver. There's all kind of examples usually in the offensive line, and you look at our tight ends. They don't get a lot of pass on the back, but they do a lot of heavy work, and they're catching the football. We're targeting them some, and they're getting the ball thrown to them, and so there's just a bunch of guys that don't get all the pats on the back, except from us as coaches, for the job that they do.
When you look at Buffalo, it's pretty easy to identify who you have to stop to be successful. But with your team, you have all these different pieces. When developing this game plan, is it sort of fun to, sort of pick and choose who you can attack a defense with this week, or who could sort of get those looks, having that sort of toys to play with in sort of way?
Yeah, I don't know that it's fun. It's work, and huge time commitment to get things to where you're going to give yourself your best shot on your team, their best shot on the football field. I think as a coach, you love the game. That's part of the game. Developing strategy and placing guys on the football field where they need to be and making adjustments where they need to be and figuring out how much you should be blitzing this week versus playing straight, and so a lot of that comes into play, and there's a lot of time that gets consumed to make those before you make those decisions. So our guys put in the work, and they're smart coaches, and they I'm sure enjoy piecing together some of that stuff though too. To where that's always part of the game, and so. That would be, if you want to call it fun for them, I'm okay with that.
And then would you say, for week 1 and week 2 were both battles, coming down to this very important last two games of the season, is it nice to, be able to look back and say, you guys have been in a dogfight before, and hopefully, you can sort of take that experience to your advantage going into a Buffalo game where, it's sort of been a little bit easier for them?
All right, you're gonna have to repeat that question. My phone was ringing. I'm sorry I didn't have it shut off, and so I just shut it off and just heard a third of the question. So go ahead. That was a long one too, but
Yeah, I can ask it shorter. With the first two games of the season being those dogfights, do you feel like that gives your team an advantage heading into another, tough game against Buffalo?
yeah, I think anytime you have challenging games, that prepares you better. If you have games where it's somewhat of a blowout and you're getting a lot of other guys to play, there's a real advantage to that and a real plus to that. But the challenges that you face coming down the stretch to win a ball game, those can be vital to you when you try to carry them on over to the future games.
Coach, with it being the seniors' final game on Saturday at Peden, are there any pregame festivities planned given all the COVID restrictions and guidelines?
Yeah, there are some, and I'm just not aware of what the athletic department is doing at this point in time for Senior Day. I will get into that a little further in the week, but right now all our time is spent on Buffalo, and they'll do a good job with Senior Week. But in bringing that up, it's a great group of seniors, tremendous leadership. So be glad to honor them. That's for sure.
Coach, does this feel like a regular game, or does it feel like a divisional championship?
Well, there's a lot riding on this game. I don't think there's any question about that. Anybody that knows football or is associated with either team would I'm sure admit that. But in saying that, it's a game that you prepare for the most part like every other game. There's so much work that's got to get done, and it's got to get done in a manner that gives your team the best chance to win, regardless whether you're talking coaches or players. But obviously there's great meaning behind a game that can determine who has the edge in going to the MAC championship, or at least gets a chance to play another week and not having been taken out of a MAC championship.